Emma Collins stood frozen at the altar of St. Michael's Cathedral, her ivory silk dress feeling like a costume from someone else's life. The ornate stained-glass windows cast rainbow shadows across her trembling hands as she clutched her bouquet of white peonies. 200 guests sat in perfect silence, their faces a mixture of shock and pity. "I can't do this, Emma," James Blackwood whispered, his voice carrying across the cathedral's acoustics. "I'm sorry, but I just can't." The words hit Emma like physical blows. She had dreamed of this moment for 2 years, ever since James had proposed during a romantic dinner overlooking the city. Now, standing in her grandmother's pearl earrings and the dress she had saved for months to afford, Emma felt her entire world crumbling beneath her feet. The mother's ultimatum, 30 minutes earlier, Emma had been putting the finishing touches on her makeup in the bridal suite when Victoria Blackwood entered without knocking. The woman moved like a predator in her designer navy suit, her silver hair perfectly styled, her cold blue eyes calculating. "Emma, dear, we need to talk," Victoria had said, her voice dripping with false sweetness. Emma had turned from the mirror, her heart already beginning to race. Something in Victoria's tone set off every alarm bell she possessed. "Of course, Mrs. Blackwood. Is everything ready?" Victoria had smiled then, a sharp expression that never reached her eyes. "It depends entirely on you, my dear." She had placed a manila folder on the dressing table with deliberate precision. Emma's hands had shaken as she opened it, revealing copies of her financial records, her employment history, even photographs of her modest apartment in the Arts District. 43,000 in student loans, Victoria had recited like she was reading a grocery list. A one-bedroom rental apartment. A 10-year-old Honda Civic. "Tell me, Emma, do you really think you're suitable for the Blackwood family?" Emma had felt her face burn with humiliation. "I work hard, Mrs. Blackwood. I'm a pediatric nurse at Children's Memorial Hospital. I help save children's lives every day." "How noble," Victoria had replied with a dismissive wave. "But hardly the foundation for a marriage into one of the city's most prominent families. James has a future in politics, Emma. He needs a wife who can elevate his status, not drag it down with her working-class background." The cruelty of those words had stolen Emma's breath. Working-class background, as if her father's years as a firefighter and her mother's work as a school secretary were somehow shameful. As if the scholarships she had earned through academic excellence meant nothing. The choice. "That wasn't, I'm prepared to offer you a way out," Victoria had continued, pulling out a check. $50,000, enough to pay off your loans and start fresh somewhere else. All you have to do is walk away. Tell James you've realized you're not compatible. I'll save everyone the embarrassment of a marriage that's doomed to fail." Emma had stared at the check, her vision blurring with unshed tears. "You want me to leave James at the altar?" "I want you to be realistic about your place in the world, dear. James will thank you for this someday. You'll both be happier with people from your own social circles." The dismissal in Victoria's voice had been absolute. To her, Emma wasn't a person with feelings and dreams. She was simply an obstacle to be removed with the right amount of money. "And if I refuse?" Victoria's smile had turned genuinely frightening. Then you'll discover just how difficult life can become for someone in your position. Medical careers are surprisingly fragile things. Emma, references can be withdrawn. Professional reputations can be questioned. I would hate for your dedication to children to be overshadowed by questions about your judgment." The walk of shame now, standing at the altar with James's rejection echoing through the cathedral, Emma realized that Victoria had already won. James's. The weak apology wasn't genuine remorse, it was relief. Relief that his mother had given him an excuse to escape a marriage he had apparently never wanted. Emma's hands moved automatically, placing her bouquet on the altar steps. She turned to face the congregation, 200 pairs of eyes watching her public humiliation. In the front row, Victoria Blackwood sat with perfect posture, her expression one of satisfied triumph. "I'm sorry," Emma said, her voice surprisingly steady. "The wedding is canceled." She walked down the aisle with as much dignity as she could muster, her heels clicking against the marble floor with each determined step. Behind her, she could hear the eruption of whispered conversations, the rustle of programs being folded, the sound of her dreams being buried under gossip and speculation. Alone in the storm outside the cathedral, the autumn rain had begun in earnest. Emma stood on the stone steps, her wedding dress growing heavy with moisture, her carefully styled hair beginning to fall in wet tendrils around her face. She had nowhere to go. Her apartment lease had ended the week before. Her belongings moved to James's penthouse in preparation for their married life together. Her maid of honor, Jessica, appeared beside her with an umbrella and a look of fierce loyalty. "Emma, honey, come stay with me. We'll figure this out." But Emma shook her head. She needed to be alone, needed to process the magnitude of what had just happened. "I'll be fine, Jess. I just need some time. You can't just stand here in the rain. I'll catch a cab to a hotel. I just need a minute." Jessica had reluctantly left her with promises to call later, and Emma found herself truly alone for the first time since arriving at the cathedral that morning, full of hope and anticipation. The stranger's kindness, the rain was coming down harder now, turning the city streets into rivers of reflected light. Emma's mascara had long since given up its waterproof claims, and her dress was becoming increasingly impractical with each passing minute. She was trying to flag down a taxi when a sleek black car pulled up to the curb. The driver's window rolled down, revealing a man with concerned dark eyes and rain-dampened black hair. He was handsome in an understated way, with strong features and the kind of presence that suggested both wealth and substance. "Excuse me," he called over the sound of the rain. "Are you all right?" Emma almost laughed at the absurdity of the question. Was she all right? She had just been humiliated in front of everyone she knew, abandoned at the altar by a man who claimed to love her, and effectively blackmailed by his mother. She was soaking wet, homeless, and heartbroken. "I'm perfect," she said, unable to keep the bitterness from her voice. The stranger studied her face for a moment, and Emma saw something in his expression that looked like recognition of pain. Not pity, but understanding. "I'm Alexander," he said, "and you're clearly having the worst day of your life. Can I offer you a ride somewhere dry?" Emma hesitated. Everything she had been taught about stranger danger warred with her desperate need to get out of the rain and away from the cathedral where her humiliation had taken place. "I don't even know where I'm going," she admitted. "That's okay," Alexander said gently. "Sometimes the best journeys start without a destination." A moment of trust, something in his voice, perhaps the genuine kindness without any hint of predatory interest, made Emma's decision for her. She approached the car, her waterlogged dress making each step a challenge. Alexander immediately got out, coming around to open the passenger door for her. He was taller than she had expected, dressed in an expensive suit that somehow managed to look elegant despite being soaked. He shrugged out of his jacket and draped it around her shoulders without asking permission. "Thank you," Emma said, sliding into the warm interior of what she now realized was a very expensive car. The leather seats were soft as butter, and the dashboard looked like something from a spaceship. Alexander got back behind the wheel, adjusting the heat and pointing the vents toward her. "Hotel." Emma nodded, not trusting her voice. The events of the day were catching up with her, and she felt dangerously close to breaking down completely. They drove in comfortable silence through the rain-slicked streets. Alexander didn't push for conversation or details about her obviously difficult situation. He simply drove, occasionally glancing over to make sure she was warm enough, offering her tissues from the glove compartment when her silent tears began to fall. The revelation, "I'm a pediatric nurse," Emma found herself saying as they pulled up to a modest hotel downtown. She wasn't sure she was explaining to him or to herself. "I help children who are sick and scared. I've never cared about money or status or any of the things his mother said I should care about. I just wanted to love someone and be loved back." Alexander turned off the engine and looked at her with those perceptive dark eyes. "His loss," he said simply. "You don't even know me. I know you're a nurse who helps children. I know you're brave enough to walk away from something that wasn't right, even when it meant public humiliation. I know you're sitting in a stranger's car, trusting that not everyone in the world is cruel." Alexander smiled softly. "It tells me everything I need to know about your character." Emma felt fresh tears threaten. After hours of being told she wasn't good enough, wasn't worthy, wasn't suitable, here was a complete stranger treating her with more respect and kindness than her fiancé's family ever had. "Thank you," she whispered, "for the ride, for the kindness, for treating me like a person instead of a problem to be solved." As Emma prepared to get out of the car, Alexander hesitated for a moment before speaking again. "I know this might sound presumptuous, but I have a daughter, 8 years old. She's been through some difficult times, and she needs someone who understands how to help children heal." He paused, studying Emma's face. "If you're interested in a change of scenery, I could use someone with your skills and your heart." Emma stared at him, wondering if this was real or if her traumatic day had finally pushed her into some kind of stress-induced hallucination. "You're offering me a job? You don't know anything about me? I know you're a pediatric nurse who puts children first. I know you have integrity, even when it costs you everything. And I know my daughter could use someone who understands that healing takes time and patience." Alexander pulled out a business card. "Think about it. No pressure, no strings attached, just an opportunity for a fresh start." Emma took the card. With trembling fingers, Alexander Sterling, CEO, Sterling Technologies. She had heard of Sterling Technologies, of course. Everyone had. They were one of the largest tech companies in the country. A nanny position, a position helping my daughter navigate some challenges while I work. She's brilliant and wonderful, but she's also grieving and wary of new people. She needs someone genuine, someone who won't be intimidated by her intelligence or put off by her protective walls. Emma looked down at the card, then back at Alexander's kind eyes. After the worst day of her life, was it possible that something good might still be waiting for her? "I'll think about it," she said finally. "That's all I can ask." As Emma walked into the hotel lobby, still wearing Alexander's jacket over her ruined wedding dress, she felt something she hadn't experienced in hours. Hope. Maybe Victoria Blackwood had been wrong about everything. Maybe Emma's worth wasn't determined by her bank account or her social status. Maybe there were still good people in the world who valued kindness and integrity over wealth and connections. Behind her, Alexander Sterling sat in his car for a long moment, watching her disappear into the hotel. He had no idea why he had offered a job to a complete stranger, a woman he had met in the most unconventional circumstances possible. But something about her quiet dignity in the face of obvious heartbreak had reminded him of his late wife, Sophia, who had always believed that the measure of a person's worth lay in their capacity for compassion. His daughter Olivia needed someone like that in her life. Someone who understood that being wealthy didn't make you immune to pain, that losing someone you loved left scars that money couldn't heal. Someone who would see past Olivia's carefully constructed walls to the grieving little girl underneath. As he drove home through the rain, Alexander found himself hoping that Emma Collins would take a chance on them, because something told him that she might be exactly what his broken family needed to begin healing again. The rain continued to fall on the city, washing away the remnants of Emma's old life and clearing the path for something entirely new to begin. 3 days later, Emma sat in her hotel room staring at Alexander Sterling's business card for the 100th time. She had spent the past 72 hours applying for nursing positions, only to be met with rejection after rejection. It seemed Victoria Blackwood's threats hadn't been empty. Her influence in the medical community was more far-reaching than. Emma had imagined. Her phone rang, displaying an unknown number. "Hello, Emma. This is Alexander Sterling. We met the other day during the rain." Emma's heart jumped. She had been thinking about his offer constantly, wondering if it had been real or just a kind gesture from a stranger who felt sorry for her. "Mr. Sterling, hello? Please, call me Alexander. I was wondering if you'd had a chance to consider my offer. I understand if you're not interested, but I thought I should mention that the position comes with housing on the estate and full benefits." Emma closed her eyes. Housing. That solved her most immediate problem. "Could I meet your daughter first, before making any decisions?" "Of course." "Would today work?" "Olivia gets out of school at 3. Sterling Estate." The Sterling Estate was nothing like Emma had expected. Instead of the cold, imposing mansion she had imagined, she found herself approaching a warm, welcoming home that managed to be both elegant and inviting. The architecture was modern but softened with natural stone and extensive gardens that spoke of a family who valued beauty and comfort over mere display. Alexander met her at the front door, and Emma was struck again by his understated presence. He was wearing dark jeans and a casual button-down shirt, looking more like a favorite professor than a tech billionaire. "Thank you for coming," he said, his smile genuine and warm. "Olivia's excited to meet you, though she's trying very hard to pretend she doesn't care." He led her through a house that was clearly a home first and a showcase second. The rooms were filled with books, family photographs, and the comfortable clutter of actual living. Emma noticed immediately that many of the photos featured a beautiful woman with laughing eyes and dark hair who could only be Alexander's late wife. Sophia, Alexander said quietly, noticing her attention. "She died 2 years ago in a car accident. Olivia was with her." Emma's professional instincts immediately engaged. How is Olivia processing the trauma? Better than she was, but still struggling. It's wary of new people, especially women who might be interested in me. She's had to watch me navigate some complicated social situations, and she's learned to be protective of our family dynamic. Meeting Olivia Sterling appeared in the kitchen doorway with the cautious grace of someone much older than her 8 years. She had her father's dark eyes and her mother's delicate features. But there was a wariness in her expression that spoke of hard-won wisdom. "You're the lady from the wedding," Olivia said without preamble. Emma blinked in surprise. "How did you know about that?" "Dad told me he met you when you were having a terrible day and someone had been very mean to you." Olivia studied Emma's face with disturbing intensity. "You sad?" The direct question caught Emma off guard. Most adults would have danced around the topic, but Olivia clearly preferred honesty. "Yes," Emma said simply. "I am sad. But I'm also hopeful that good things might still happen." Olivia considered this. "Mom used to say that sad feelings were important because they helped us understand when something wasn't right." Emma felt her heart squeeze. "Your mom sounds very wise." "She was. She taught me that it's okay to be sad about losing someone you love, but it's also okay to let new people into your life if they're good people." Olivia paused. "Are you a good person?" Alexander watched this exchange with fascination. Olivia had never been this direct with any of the other candidates they had interviewed. Usually she retreated into polite distance, answering questions with minimal responses until the person left. "I try to be," Emma answered honestly. "I work with children who are sick or hurt, and I try to help them feel better. Sometimes that means giving medicine, sometimes it means just sitting with them when they're scared." "Dad said you help kids." "In the hospital I do. Would you like to know what that's like?" For the next hour, Emma found herself telling Olivia stories from the pediatric ward. She talked about brave children facing difficult treatments, about the importance of honesty when explaining medical procedures, about how sometimes the best medicine was simply knowing that someone cared. Olivia listened with rapt attention, asking thoughtful questions that revealed both her intelligence and her own experience with medical settings. When Mom was in the hospital after the accident, some of the nurses were really nice, and some weren't. Olivia said eventually. "The nice ones talked to me like I was smart enough to understand things. The others talked to me like I was a baby." "How did you want them to talk to you?" "Like I was a person who could handle the truth, even if the truth was scary." Emma nodded seriously. "Okay, that makes perfect sense. Children are much braver and stronger than most adults give them credit for." "The test after dinner," Alexander suggested. "That Olivia show Emma her room?" Emma followed the little girl upstairs, noting the family photos that lined the hallway. There were pictures of family vacations, birthday parties, quiet moments that captured a family that had been genuinely happy together. Olivia's room was a perfect reflection of its occupant, sophisticated enough for a child with an advanced intellect, but still cozy and filled with the things an 8-year-old loved. Books lined one wall, art supplies covered a desk by the window, and a collection of stuffed animals suggested that despite her mature demeanor, Olivia was still very much a child. "This was Mom's favorite room in the house," Olivia said, settling. Onto her bed, She said it had the best light for reading. Emma noticed a framed photo on the nightstand. Olivia and her mother reading together, both of them laughing at something in the book. She looks like she was a wonderful mom. She was. Olivia was quiet for a moment. The other ladies who came to interview, they all said that. They said it like they were trying to make me feel better, not like they really meant it. Could you tell the difference? Their eyes? When people are just saying things they think you want to hear, their eyes look different than when they really mean it. Emma was continually amazed by this child's perception. What do my eyes look like? Olivia studied her carefully, like you really see her in the pictures, like you understand that she was important and that I still miss her. I do understand that. And missing someone you love never goes away completely, but it can get easier. To carry, is that what happened when your mom died? Emma paused, realizing that Olivia had assumed her sadness was from losing a parent. Actually, my parents are both still alive. I was sad because someone I thought loved me decided I wasn't good enough for him. Olivia's expression shifted to indignation. That's stupid. Anyone could see you're good enough. The fierce protectiveness in the little girl's voice made Emma's eyes water. Thank you, Olivia. That means more to me than you know. Dad thinks you're good enough too. I can tell because he gets that look. What look? The same look he used to get when he looked at Mom, like you make him remember that good things exist. The offer accepted later that evening, after Olivia had gone to bed. Emma and Alexander sat in his study discussing the practical details of the position. The salary was more than generous, the benefits comprehensive, and the living arrangements ideal. But Emma found herself most impressed by the way Alexander talked about his daughter. With obvious love and respect for her intelligence and strength. She's remarkable, Emma said. Wise beyond her years, but still wonderfully childlike in so many ways. She has to be wise. She's seen things no child should see, survived losses that would break some adults. Alexander's expression grew serious. That's part of what makes this position challenging. Olivia needs someone who won't try to rush her healing, who won't take her wariness personally. I understand. How many nannies have you had? For in the past year, to quit because they said Olivia was too difficult. One was let go because she was more interested in photographing our home for social media than actually caring for Olivia. The last one lasted 3 months before Olivia informed me that the woman was fake nice and made her uncomfortable. Emma smiled. Olivia has excellent instincts about people. She does. She's getting her approval tonight means everything to me. Did I get her approval? Alexander's smile was warm. She asked me if you could start tomorrow. She also asked if you would be staying in the guest cottage long-term because she thinks you would like the garden view. Emma felt a flutter of something that might have been hope. And what did you tell her? I told her that was entirely up to you. Emma looked around the study, with its floor-to-ceiling bookshelves and comfortable reading chairs. Through the window, she could see the guest cottage Alexander had mentioned. It's charming and private, but still connected to the main house by a stone path. Alexander, I need you to know that I'm not looking for anything other than employment. Not in a place emotionally to consider any kind of personal relationship. And I wouldn't want there to be any misunderstandings. I appreciate your honesty. Not looking for anything beyond professional help with Olivia either. I loved my wife deeply, and I'm not ready for anything more than friendship with anyone. The relief Emma felt at his words told her she had been right to address the issue directly. Working for an attractive, kind, wealthy single father was complicated enough without adding romantic expectations to the mix. In that case, Emma said, extending her hand, I would be honored to accept the position. Alexander shook her hand, his grip warm and firm. Welcome to our family, Emma. I think you're going to be exactly what we needed. The new beginning the next morning. Emma moved into the guest cottage with her single suitcase and a heart full of cautious optimism. The cottage was perfect, bright and airy, with a view of the gardens and enough space for her to create a real home for the first time in months. Olivia appeared at her door within an hour of her arrival, carrying a plate of homemade cookies and a shy smile. Mrs. Rodriguez made these for you. She's our housekeeper and the best cook in the world. She wanted to make sure you felt welcome. Emma accepted the cookies gratefully. Would you like to help me unpack? I could use an expert opinion on where things should go. Hours they worked together, arranging Emma's modest belongings in the cottage. Olivia proved to be an excellent decorator, with strong opinions about furniture placement and color coordination. But more importantly, she began to relax around Emma, sharing stories about her school, her friends, and her interests. By the time Alexander returned from work that evening, he found them in the kitchen of the main house, working together too. Prepared dinner while discussing the finer points of marine biology, apparently Olivia's current academic obsession. He asked Emma, but his eyes were on his daughter, who was more animated than he had seen her in months. Educational, Emma replied with a smile. Did you know that octopi have 3 hearts and blue blood? I do now, Alexander laughed. Olivia's been on a marine biology kick for the past month. I've learned more about ocean life than I ever thought possible. As they sat down to dinner together, Emma realized that for the first time in weeks, she felt truly at peace. The storm of her ruined wedding and public humiliation seemed like something that had happened to someone else. Here, in this warm kitchen with these good people, she felt like herself again. Emma, Olivia said as they finished eating, tomorrow is Saturday. Dad usually takes me to the science museum. Would you like to come with us? Emma looked at Alexander, who nodded encouragingly. I'd love to, she said. That night, as Emma settled into her new bed in the cottage, she reflected on the strange turns her life had taken. A week ago, she had been preparing to marry a man who ultimately saw her as beneath his family's standards. Tonight, she was beginning a new job with a man who treated her with respect and kindness. Caring for a child who had already begun to feel like family, through her window, she could see the lights of the main house, warm and welcoming against the darkness. In one of those rooms, Olivia was probably reading before bed, and Alexander was likely catching up on work or simply enjoying the quiet of the evening. For the first time since standing at that altar in her ruined wedding dress, Emma allowed herself to believe that maybe Victoria Blackwood had been wrong about everything. Maybe worth wasn't measured in bank accounts or social connections. Maybe it was measured in the capacity to love and be loved, to care for others, to find joy in simple moments. As she drifted off to sleep, Emma thought about Olivia's question from their first meeting. Are you a good person? She was beginning to think that maybe she was. Maybe that was enough. Outside her window, the gardens rustled softly in the evening breeze, and in the distance, the city lights twinkled like stars. It was the beginning of something new, something unexpected, something that might just turn out to be everything she had never known she wanted. 6 months later, a love realized the spring air was filled with the scent of blooming jasmine as Emma sat in the garden, watching Olivia practice her presentation about marine conservation. The little girl had grown so much in the past months, her confidence blossoming under Emma's patient care and Alexander's devoted attention. Emma, do you think Dad would like someone to love him again? Olivia asked suddenly, looking up from her notes. Emma's heart skipped. Over the months, she had found herself falling deeper in love with both father and daughter, though she had kept her feelings carefully hidden. Why do you ask, sweetheart? Because I think he's lonely sometimes. And I think he looks at you the way he used to look at Mom. Happy and hopeful. Before Emma could respond, Alexander appeared on the garden path, having returned early from work. His face lit up when he saw them together, the same expression that had been appearing more frequently lately. How are my 2 favorite ladies? He asked, settling beside them on the garden bench. Dad, Olivia said with 8-year-old directness, I think you should marry Emma. Alexander nearly choked on his coffee while Emma felt her face flame red. Olivia? Emma gasped. What? You love each other, I can tell. And Mom always said that when good people love each other, they should be brave enough to say so. Alexander and Emma stared at each other across the garden table. Months of carefully maintained professional boundaries suddenly crumbling under Olivia's innocent honesty. Emma, Alexander said softly, his voice thick with emotion, is there any truth to what our very perceptive daughter is saying? Emma looked into his warm brown eyes, then at Olivia's hopeful face, and realized that some chances were too precious to waste on fear. Yes, she whispered. I love you both. I have for months. Alexander's smile was radiant as he reached for her hand. I love you too, Emma. I have since that rainy night when you trusted a stranger to drive you to safety. You brought light back into our lives when we had forgotten how to hope." Olivia clapped her hands in delight. "So you'll get married?" Alexander laughed, still holding Emma's hand. "Well, we should probably talk about that privately first." "Can I plan the wedding, please?" "I promise it will be perfect. Nothing like that awful man who left you at the altar, Emma. This will be a wedding full of people who really love you." Emma felt tears of joy streaming down her face. "I think that sounds absolutely perfect." 1 year later, the perfect wedding. Sterling Estate Gardens were transformed into a fairy tale setting, with white roses and twinkling lights creating an atmosphere of pure magic. This time, Emma walked down the aisle in a dress she had chosen herself, surrounded by people who truly loved and supported her. Olivia served as maid of honor, her face glowing with pride as she watched her father and Emma exchange vows. They had written themselves. There were no ulterior motives, no social climbing, no family disapproval. Just pure, honest love between two people who had found their way to each other through heartbreak and healing. "Emma," Alexander said, his voice strong and clear, "you came into our lives when we had forgotten how to dream. You taught us that families can be built on love and choice, not just blood and obligation. Showed Olivia that it's possible to honor the past while embracing the future. And you showed me that the heart has infinite capacity for love." Emma's voice was equally steady as she replied, "Alexander, you and Olivia saved me when I thought I was broken beyond repair. You taught me that my worth isn't measured by someone else's approval, but by the love I give and receive. You gave me a family when I thought I had lost everything. You are my home, my heart, my happily ever after." As they kissed to seal their union, Olivia cheered loudly from the front row, where she sat between Alexander's parents and Emma's proud mother and father. Even Victoria Blackwood's attempts to sabotage Emma's career had ultimately failed, as word of her kindness and skill had spread through the medical community despite the obstacles. The epilogue. 3 years later, Irma Sterling stood in the nursery of their home, gently rocking their 6-month-old son, David. Olivia sat nearby, reading him a story about ocean adventures. Through the window, she could see Alexander in the garden, planning the expansion that would accommodate their growing family. "Mom," Olivia said, looking up from the book, "I'm really glad that mean lady made you run away from your first wedding." Emma laughed softly. "Why is that, sweetheart?" "Because if you had married that awful man, you never would have found us. We never would have found you. Sometimes the worst things that happen to us lead to the best things." Lo looked down at her sleeping son, then at her stepdaughter, who had become her daughter in every way that mattered. Then out at her husband, who was walking toward the house with flowers from their garden. "You're absolutely right, Olivia. Sometimes the most beautiful stories begin with the most terrible endings." Alexander appeared in the doorway, his face soft with love, as he took in the scene of his wife and children. "What are my beautiful family?" Discussing how Emma's terrible wedding day was actually the best thing that ever happened to all of us, Olivia announced. Alexander moved to Emma's side, wrapping his arms around her and their son. "Smart girl. She gets that from her mother." "Both her mothers," Emma corrected gently, thinking of Sophia's photo that still held a place of honor in their home, and how Olivia had insisted that their wedding bouquet include some of Sophia's favorite flowers. As the sun set over their perfect, imperfect, beautifully real family, Emma thought about the woman she had been on that terrible rainy day 3 years ago. That woman could never have imagined this life, this love. It's a sense of complete belonging. Sometimes the fairy tale doesn't begin with once upon a time. Sometimes it begins with, "This is the worst day of my life," and transforms into something more beautiful than any story ever written. Victoria Blackwood had been right about one thing. Emma Collins hadn't been suitable for the Blackwood family. She had been destined for something far better. She had been meant for the Sterling family. For a love that saw her worth, not in her bank account or her pedigree, but in her capacity for kindness, her strength in adversity, and her ability to help broken hearts heal. As Alexander kissed her forehead and Olivia continued reading to baby David, Emma Sterling closed her eyes and smiled. This was her happily ever after, built on a foundation of genuine love, mutual respect, and the unshakable belief that the best families are the ones we choose to build together. The storm had indeed ended. The sunshine was brilliant and warm, and it was here to stay.